Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Drift Happens. I'm your host, Joey,
And I'm Arthur.
and today we're going to be talking about something. I don't know what, but first, Arthur, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. I went to a pumpkin patch today. It was very, cozy and fall coated. I got a pumpkin there, as one might expect.
Awesome, doing the fall festivities. I enjoyed the fall time by accidentally leaving my window open last night when it dipped down to about 40 degrees. So I was a cold little burrito when I woke up, all wrapped up in two blankets.
It's very funny you mentioned that because I think it was either the last episode or the episode before that you talked about how you love October because you can start leaving the windows open or still leave them open.
Kind of going crazy. It was like 79 degrees on Friday, and then last night it was like a low of 42. So it's really hitting some peaks and valleys now.
The long dark is coming.
Yeah, man. When daylight savings hits, that's just gonna be so sad.
Yeah, God, it's like the one bipartisan issue that a lot of people seem to agree on, and yet no one will actually bother to just fucking get rid of the thing. In this house, we are anti-daylight savings. God damn it.
Yeah, I mean, same here. I don't even care which way it goes. Just pick one and stick with it. Just stop changing it. I don't care if it's daylight savings or standard. Just don't make me switch the clock, and don't make me wake up one morning to the darkness of eternal sorrow.
Well, you heard it here first, folks. We've now become a political podcast, and this is our one point of contention.
We're gonna try and slip through without the political tag on Spotify, so we can get ads, maybe.
Yeah, we'll see about that. But so today we're going to be talking about a Thunner Pact World. There's a bunch of them, so we're slowly chipping away at the overall mass. But right now I've got a clue for you, Joey, if you're ready for it.
Yep, hit me.
Some of our other previous ones have been a quote, but this one is just going to be a clue. So here we go. On the surface level, inhospitable and utterly wrong for life. On a closer look, teeming with life and possibilities in its massive, turbulent skies.
Ooh, the massive and turbulent is the clue here. I think we're going to talk about Bretheda, which looks to be a gas giant.
That would be correct. You have what is this, 5 for 5 right now. Good job.
Man, I'm really good at context clues.
Yeah, we're going to be talking about Bretheda. It's also got a number of moons that have significant stuff going on them as well. So we'll hit on some of those, and some of those we're actually going to save for a later episode, and we'll explain why in a little bit. But as per usual, I have got a bit of a flavor text for you to read about Bretheda, and I'm going to throw that in our chat. There you go.
The largest planet of the Pact World system is a massive, turbulent gas giant ringed with abundant moons, some of which are themselves larger than other Pact worlds. The sky seas of this world constantly churn and roil in bands encircling the world, forming perpetual storms that can be seen from across the system and last for centuries, if not millennia. Despite this tumult, Bretheda and its moons have spawned a stunning number and variety of life forms, leading to its long-standing moniker, the Cradle.
Yeah, so we're going to be talking about Bretheda today. I'm going to throw a picture of what it and its moons look like, if you want to describe what we're looking at to our listeners.
Picture in your minds, listeners, Jupiter, and then instead of red and tan kind of swirling throughout, it's blue, light blue, and purple with a hint of like lightish pink kind of swirling. But there is a large storm spot, very similar to Jupiter, that is just a swirl of blue, pink, and purple in a mass on the kind of southern part of the planet. And then is surrounded by many very colorful moons, one of which appears to be an absolute hellhole of red and black, I'm assuming just a molten ball of agony. And another one that kind of looks like a little itty-bitty Earth circling around.
Yeah, I think Bretheda definitely has a lot of similarities to Jupiter. I mean, I don't remember the name of the specific storm on Jupiter. Is it just the Eye or something?
Yeah, I think they call it the Eye.
Something like that. very similar for like, hey, we can see that shit from a pretty basic telescope from Earth and stuff like that. And then its moons, there's actually quite a bit more than are represented in this picture, but this is a bit of a smattering. Um, it's kind of a smorgasbord of various options for what appear on those little moons. So lots going on here. What we're going to talk about first are kind of the two main sentient species that call Bretheda itself home. The big one are going to be the Barathus, which we've talked about before, and they dominate the culture of Bretheda. They are a highly intelligent and they can like self-modify themselves a lot, and they're a floating blimp-like jellyfish guy, who are native to Bretheda, and they are the most populous group there as well. Generally, they're going to be a very peaceful culture, and that's kind of extended itself to the planet for having a peaceful reputation as well. And I'm going to put a picture in the chat of what a Barathu looks like, if you want to tell people what you're looking at. It's thinking about going. There we go.
Well, for being honest, it's a little bit more of a Lovecraftian horror than it is anything that you would want to meet in a dark alley. It's like a jelly-filled shrimp on top with a bunch of tentacles dangling from the bottom. And this particular one is holding a laser rifle, where he's got one tentacle that kind of comes up to the trigger, but then he's got two that wrap around the barrel multiple times to stabilize it. So an interesting way of holding it. And he doesn't necessarily shoulder it because, well, I think he would require a shoulder for that, and he does not have any.
Yeah, and I think, what's the, remind me what the species is from Mass Effect that you said are kind of like these guys?
Oh, the Hanar. Very much like the Hanar.
Yeah, a little bit of a vibe there. Yeah, especially like the Barathus involved in modern society will sometimes wear clothing, but it's more like kind of the Hanar, which is more just like draped over their backs versus like a suit with 12 different tentacle holes or something like that. More like a saddle blanket.
Sean hates to be the tailor that makes that.
Yeah. So they're the main cultural force on Bretheda. They're the center of government. We'll talk about it a bit later. And something cool that they can do is they can actually merge with other Barathus to like make a greater whole with a larger collective consciousness. And that's something that we'll talk about more this episode, which is important for the culture of Bretheda. The next one we're going to talk about are the Han. And these are arthropods, and they don't have wings, but they are able to navigate the helium-hydrogen atmosphere of Bretheda by using natural balloons that they make from silken webbing that they make from their own bodies. I'm going to set a picture of what one of these guys looks like. Sounds like an Australian horror, just to get that out there.
Horrifying already. Oh, well, don't worry, listeners. It looks like an Australian horror as well. It's a very, very spiny, pokey, insect-looking thing that does have silken pods up above it that it's dangling from.
Mm-hmm.
There's ridges and spines all over it. Kind of like the scariest insect that you can think of, and probably massive as well.
Yeah, that's like human-sized.
Yeah. Yep, that belongs in Australia.
So these guys, in their natural state, they have like little groups and they're just kind of floating around happily from their balloons. But some of them have kind of moved beyond that and have adopted, we'll call it modern life in the packed worlds. A lot of them like to be like fighter pilots or starship pilots just because they're used to flying around. But a lot of them kind of reject the modernity and kind of just want to keep doing their own thing. We'll talk about that more this episode, but they sometimes get a bit unhappy when their way of life is getting infringed on by technological advances. In addition to these two sentient guys, there's a various variety of wildlife and plant life that has similarly evolved to be fine in floating around in the skies of Bretheda. So nowhere near as dense as like a jungle, but you'll find various spores or little microscopic guys floating around, or even larger things, maybe more close in size to the Hans or the Barathus, that are also just vibing around in the the Brethedan atmosphere. A lot of bees in this.
It's a very interesting kind of ecological setup, Because, I mean, for all we know, Jupiter has the same thing going on within its atmosphere. So it's really cool that they included just a subsect of life in a gas giant, or
Mhm.
on a gas giant, through a gas giant? I don't know.
In close proximity to.
Yeah, in relation to.
So historically, the Barathus didn't need to have cities or anything like that. They were just kind of a similar mindset to the Han, and kind of just had floating groups going through the skies doing their own thing. But with the, I guess, advent, or I guess when they started meeting other cultures from the Pact Worlds, they realized in order to, interface better with people visiting, kind of in order to have like better starship facilities and stuff, they needed to create like permanent habitations. So what they would do is they make these floating cities, and the first ones were completely organic. The Barathu have a very strong kind of connection to the biotech industry and biotech making, and that's actually the largest industry of the planet. Prior to spaceflight, everything that the Barathus were able to invent was based on biotech, as they don't have any accessible metal deposits for them to benefit from. So all their weapons, all their means of conveyance, that was all like carefully grown from basically biotechnology that they were able to carefully cultivate. And I forget what the exact word is when you like are raising dogs over and over to become like look a certain way. It was selective breeding, I guess. I don't know.
Selective breeding, I guess, yeah.
Yeah, something along those. Basically, they're able to do that to various life forms to achieve what they wanted to do, and they were able to make these floating cities out of these life forms called arcologies. Today, it's a lot easier to do that with metal and other traditional synthetic products, so most of the modern floating cities on Bretheda are going to be modular metal or other synthetic-based structures that just kind of bob around in the sky.
To be a breeder in that time, I don't know. Saying breeder feels weird.
Breeder is one of those words that we should never use.
Yeah, being a person who, say, is in charge of constructing homes, it'd be terrible to come across a Barathu Karen who's like, I asked for 4 bathrooms in this home, not 3 bathrooms. He's like, son of a bitch, it's going to take me another 1,000 years to breed a new one with an extra bathroom in it.
I guess that's my great-great-grandson's project now.
It's like, all right, well, we'll send your clan the bill eventually.
God, contractors from hell. So, Bretheda is going to be the largest planet in the Pact World system. On its surface, kind of down amongst the densest gases, what we would kind of consider the surface, its gravity is around 2.5 times the standard. A day lasts 6 standard days, and a planetary year is 30 standard years. And as we've talked about, the planet is covered largely by roiling storm fronts, which can last for years, if not generations.
So when they kind of like talk about the surface, does it specify whether it is like a hard surface that you can walk on, or is it more kind of like an equilibrium where the gravity is so strong and the gases become so dense that you can basically walk on them?
I think it's going to trend more that direction. The issue is that aside from a few native species to Bretheda, most things and most starships are going to die if you get too far down into the denser gases. The reason is the pressure, and that can fuck up a organic being, that can fuck up a starship, and with the crazy storms going on too, you can easily get sucked down into just a very pressure area where your body's gonna collapse in on itself.
Oh, that sounds like a very fun way to spend a vacation.
Yeah, so the Han and the Barathus can go a little bit further down than a human, for example, but even they are, they're just bopping around in the skies because that's where everything they need to live is up there. And all those arcologies, they're going to be floating at or above the height that the Barathus were vibing at anyway.
That makes sense. It'd be, I guess, kind of fun to explore the deeper levels of Bretheda. I'm going to get those two confused a lot.
The B words are confusing to me. There are some reasons to need to go down that far, because there are a lot of gas extraction companies that work on the planet where they'll have like a floating oil derrick basically and have specific harvesting that they're trying to do from there to get a big helium shipment that they're going to send off world kind of thing. So they're going to have a long, whatever the word is for, I mean, what is, not really a drill. What do you call the end of a oil rig? Kind of just a pipe, I guess?
Well, maybe?
Yeah. Basically a helium well type situation from these floating derricks. So they're poking around down there, but they have very specialized equipment to do that.
Okay, so I guess it kind of maybe some vibes of like Bespin from Star Wars, kind of like the cities in the clouds where it's a gas giant. They do a lot of really material gathering and refining, or gas gathering and refining.
Yeah, and outside of the gas, we kind of mentioned it earlier, but that biotech, there's going to be a bunch of those labs here, just because the Barathus were such pioneers in that industry. Outside of kind of those industries, though, Bretheda is surrounded by numerous moons, some of which also have life. And we're going to discuss some of those moons this episode, but some notable moons that we're not going to discuss this episode are Kalo Mahoy, Murata, and Daikon. And that's because those three moons were all recently accepted as their own individual Pact World members and are no longer part of like the larger Brethedan coalition. Because Bretheda is represented in the Pact Worlds by itself, some of its moons, and Liavara, and a lot of Liavara's moons. So the Barathus are kind of in charge of all of that, which means they have significant power, but these three moons just broke away, and each of them has its own sentient species, which we'll talk about, and the moons more in a later episode.
What's the total number of moons, including small rocks as well as... So basically, how many are in orbit of Bretheda?
I think it's less than Jupiter. Let me check real quick.
Jupiter has 62? I pulled that number out of my ass, but it sounds right.
I don't think there is an official number other than dozens. And I think the issue is some of them are pretty small, so like what's an asteroid versus what's a moon kind of gets a little skiffy with that. But I'd say in the vicinity of the number that Jupiter has.
Okay. We're not here to be Starfinder astronomists.
That's the term.
It is kind of cool.
I'm going to send you a picture now of what the arcology of Trillidium, good lord, looks like. It's one of the... Actually, it is the largest arcology on Bretheda. If I could get it to copy, that would be lovely. I feel like such a boomer every time this happens.
I haven't seen the picture yet, but I imagine it's going to be squishy, and I don't like that.
Well, this one's actually one of those metal and other synthetics type of things.
Okay.
So this is what Trillidium looks like.
Okay, so this is more of like just a floating city vibe. It's got some towering buildings kind of spread throughout, but it's very spread. There's some interesting things with rings going on throughout it. Some rings are kind of concentric with the flat plane of the city. Some go up and over, kind of like in a, what do you think of like a gyroscope? Kind of how that spins around.
Yeah, I see what you're just seeing there.
Looks like some vibe of that, and it is surrounding a bubbly pink mass that looks like a massive Barathu sitting in the middle.
Yeah, that's probably what that is. I think that's going to be multiple Barathus that have merged together, kind of like we mentioned earlier.
Oh, yeah.
Trillidium, being the largest and most metropolitan of the arcologies, sees the most off-world visitors and immigration of all of the cities on Bretheda. And it maintains a fixed location floating over the planet's north pole to avoid the storms which are more prevalent in other parts of the planet. Kind of because of that, it's basically experiencing a near constant purple-hued twilight, which is kind of what we're seeing in this picture here, which is really interesting ambiance. The population itself is around 265,000 persons, the majority of which are Barathus, followed by notable populations of Lashuntas, humans, and Kasathas, good lord, with other aliens making up the final few percent of residents. So Bretheda is really easy to expand because all the transparent domes of the city, that are clumped together in various configurations are modular. So you got residential areas, commercial areas, and industrial areas. Whenever they need to expand the city, they essentially just prefab a new district and then weld it on there, and you're good to go. It really allows for rapid construction. Because, I mean, when you think of it, when you're constructing, you're not having to, think about, highway construction, where you're trying to expand a highway, but you also got the added difficulty of people commuting to work and just all this other shit going on. You can just, in isolation, build an entire district without having to worry about other shit going on, and you just fly that over to the city itself, weld it on, and you're good to go. So it's really easy for rapid expansion of the city, and it's expanded significantly over the last few years.
It's kind of like how when you're playing Civ, and you're just like, oh, I want an aqueduct here. And you just click, and then boom, that tile is now an aqueduct.
Yep. Very, very easy for the city planners here. Kind of one place of note on Trilodeum is going to be a significant temple to the goddess Talavet. We'll talk more about deities and gods in another episode, but Talavet is the goddess of community, self-reliance, and tradition, and this is a significant cultural site for that. It kind of ties in with a lot of the Barathu values.
So is this city, I mean, obviously it has the most off-world travel, it is the most kind of industrialized. I'm assuming it's also the hub for pretty much all interplanetary trade?
There's a decent amount going on here. I would say there isn't really a centralized hub for that on Bretheda, and the reason for that is that there are several arcologies that are almost like corporate cities, where you have a large biotech corporation who has kind of sponsored an arcology, and so you'll have these corporate towns that kind of spring up around whatever their research center is or whatever, and those will have their own import and export thing. So you'll have the Amazon arcology floating around. You'll have your Lockheed Martin arcology floating around. So it's, as opposed to one centralized commerce point, I wouldn't say as much. I would say it's more dispersed on the planet.
Got it. So while you will still find shops and trade here, it's not necessarily going to be the end-all, be-all for all trade on the planet.
Yeah, I mean, even though they are able to expand the city, space still is at a premium. Kind of think of Absalom Station, where it's like, okay, we only have so much real estate, and it is dictated by our prefab bubbles that we've welded together here. So, near to Trilodeum is Confluence. And that might be the pink thing we're seeing in the picture, or that might just be a large other amalgamation of Barathus, but Confluence is an entity of many Barathus fused together who all answered the call to public service and form the governing entity of this planet. So all these Barathus kind of come together, physically meld, and make a floating think tank. And this group / single entity, it's a little murky on when the individuals become one. They coordinate and communicate to various businesses and organizations through their Confluence agents, and these agents enact the will of Confluence. And some theorize that the Confluence agents themselves are somehow directly connected to Confluence based on the complexity of the directives they receive and the coherence which they can quickly enact them.
We're getting a bit into hive mind territory. Are the Barathu a hive mind species, or do they have any kind of psychic connection?
Yeah, they can use abilities like that. I would say they're not so much a hive mind species versus I would say they hold less value of an individual sometimes. You can have an individual Barathu, and they can be perfectly fine, but that Barathu can also be just as content merging with two other Barathus for a couple years, and those three are just kind of existing together and working towards a common goal. So collectivist isn't the right word, because there's some societies in the Pact Worlds that are much more collectivist, but I think the takeaway with Barathus is the focus on the individual isn't as important to their identity, so they're comfortable doing things like joining Confluence and being part of just a like a single organism for 30 years, or like merging with their roommates to save on rent and just existing. It's a very alien mindset.
Yeah, is it a permanent merge, or can they eventually separate from it as well?
Yeah, they can separate. Yeah, it isn't like once you're welded together, you're done. If a Barathu's like, yeah, I've done my 30 years being in Confluence, now I want to go work on an oil rig, they can just freely separate and bop off.
Okay, and the giant hive mind in the middle of this city, well, not hive mind, but mind of hive of minds, I should say.
Yeah,
Uh,
I think that's a better way to do it. Instead of one singular mind putting out directives to many minds, it's many minds like forming a coherent plan and then broadcasting that. That I'd say that's the difference.
okay, and people are, yeah, I'll call them people. People are kind of coming and going from that over the years. It's not really a static thing, but you'll see people float away and then have some join in later.
Yep, it's not like once you're in, you're stuck, or it's more just like there's certain Baratheon that feel the need to be involved with public service. They'll volunteer themselves and then just be part of Confluence for a while. It's really interesting.
Yeah, that is cool.
So obviously, Confluence is the main leader of Bretheda, and Confluence speaks through their agents who will appoint things like the Pact World Ambassador and ambassadors to other planets like Eox or something like that. So obviously a very politically powerful group slash single person. Outside of the government of Bretheda, talk about a few other interesting areas. The first one we're going to talk about is a place called Bissine Run, and it is a relatively stable storm front of 300-mile-per-hour winds, boiling updrafts, and consistent lightning. This has attracted the attention of foolhardy young adults on the planet and off-planet who have started the tradition of a race through this sector. This tradition has now become televised by Zoe, who films the race by the same name, the Bissine Run, and offers a cash prize for winners. This is an incredibly dangerous venture, and numerous competitors are expected to die during each event.
Is this race, do they take, like, ships through it? Do they, like, sail on weird, like, treasure planet kind of surfboard things? Or what are they doing?
So there wasn't a clear answer to that. My impression is that there might be, like, different classes of, like, racing. So there might be, like, a hover car race, a, like, starship race, a treasure planet surfboard race, like, different body weights, basically.
Right. Yeah, that's... Also, we have very different definitions of stable. 300-mile-an-hour winds and boiling updrafts are not necessarily what I would call a stable environment, but I guess if it's consistent...
Yeah, if it's Bretheda and they know it's always going to be here. It's not going to be bopping around. This is where it is. So, yet another race, and Zoe has monetized it as per usual.
I'm starting to like Zoe. He's got his mind in the right place.
All right. So now we're going to talk about one of those arcologies that is completely biological, and it's called Ebathruya, and it's an example of that ancient Barathu technology where they would kind of over the years sculpt a arcology from simply biotech. This was actually created long before any synthetic materials were imported to the planet. And this city is interesting because Barathus are actually able to merge directly with the city to maintain and develop it. So kind of like how they're able to merge with each other, they can like semi-permanently attach themselves to the city and just be like steering it or something like that. However, conventional starships or aircraft would almost always injure the city if they got too close to it. So as a result, passage to the city is only possible by suborbital vehicles with carefully shielded engines, or literal barges towed by Barathus through Bretheda's skies. So you'll just have a Santa reindeer team of Barathus towing you.
Yeah, I imagine this is going to be the squishy city where an engine will burn its squishy surface.
Yep. No, yeah, it would if you were afterburnering, that sounds weird to me, into like an airlock or something, you would grievously hurt this city. So that's why those types of vehicles are usually banned here.
Horrifying.
Yeah. One of the significant places in the city is going to be a significant temple to the god Horus. That god is the god of adaptation evolution, and natural selection. Obviously, other important principles to the Barathus. So people other than Barathus will make their way to Ebethruya to visit this temple. Usually not live here long term, though. If you're not a Barathu, I have to imagine it's just a weird place to be.
Yeah, the walls are presumably moist.
Yeah. Well, they're probably not designed for, like, body weight, because the Barathus are usually floating around, so you're, like, sinking into it. Ugh.
Yeah, that's true. I guess their normal kind of inhabitants are going to be just floating along with their floaty tendrils, occasionally touching things, not necessarily walking and sleeping and jumping and whatever else humans do.
Yeah. Gross place, but certainly would be interesting to visit. Another arcology we're going to talk about is the arcology campus of Sui Saulis Academy. And this is a normal arcology. This is another fleshy place. And it is a Barathu-led research institution, which is the premier school in the Pact Worlds for academic biotech research. Many graduates of this school will be approached and hired by various biotech corporations, which are headquartered on Bretheda. There's a lot of professors here working on significant projects who often have the same level of security and secrecy as large corporations, and a lot of cutting-edge biotech research is associated with Sui Solis.
So this is going to be more of the scientific, just academic campus, not necessarily anything else crazy going on aside from whatever biotech research they're doing, which I guess I didn't realize you could really build a city out of flesh. It's horrifying, but the sky's the limit, I suppose.
Yeah, that's your saying. Yeah, so I mean, the fact that the professors here literally have the same level of security and secrecy as, like, the significant corporations, like, they are working on some heavy shit here. Just saying about Purdue, the professors' projects there did not have what I would call significant corporate security.
Yeah, except for the soil building, which I'm still convinced was a CIA, FBI, or something, little satellite campus that they had in the middle of ours.
Yeah. So if we stop podcasting, listeners, we have been abducted for revealing CIA black site secrets. Please contact our attorneys.
And save us.
Yeah, also that. Okay, the next place we're going to talk about is associated with the Han. And this is an area, I guess it's not really one area, there's several places on the planet that fall under this name. And these are going to be spaces known as the nesting clouds. And these are areas of Brethedan skies where the native Han lay their eggs. Hans, kind of like we talked about, they generally don't want anything to do with technology and the stationary settlements. But during their reproductive cycle, the Han will deploy a large web supported by a balloon sac, which will hold their eggs aloft while they float in a large flotilla with other floating egg sacs. The Han are super protective of these sites and guard them while the eggs have not yet hatched. The Han have recently been petitioning Confluence to put limits on satellite images of the planet, as they can be used to pinpoint where the Han eggs are in these nesting clouds, but opponents have pointed out wherever you like Google Earth, like black out a house, people will know that's an area of interest if they look at satellite images, so what's the point?
Yeah, it's kind of like, oh, hide this specific area. It's like, well, now they're definitely going to know there's something there. Also, I guess, I understand that they would be protective of their floating sack of egg sacs, but is there, like, a specific reason? Do people, like, come poach them to eat them, or are they just paranoid?
I think it would just be really easy to, like, genocide the Han if you were, like, fly a starship in and just, like, flamethrower this floating egg sac. Like, we're not talking about, like, individual, like, little parcels. Like, we're talking about, like, acres of these, like, sacks floating on balloons. So you could damage the Han's future a lot by having some sort of terrorist attack here, which is what they're concerned about. Not that I don't know any specific examples of people having, like, terroristic wants against the Han. I think it's more that they just recognize that it's a particularly dangerous way to rear their young, and outside forces could really fuck them up.
That's understandable, especially with, they've been doing that for their entire species lifespan, and it's only been kind of, relatively recently that there are satellite imagery things. It's like, oh, that is a vulnerability that was not considered when we evolved.
Yeah, so the Han are super interesting. Their avoidance to wanting to deal with technology and stuff is a pretty integral part of their culture. Now on to yet another arcology. This is the arcology of Silver Sail, which is super sleek, and it's powered by numerous wind turbines across the surface, which also help it drift away from the larger storm fronts. And it's mainly going to be floating around near the planet's south pole, about our area of calmer skies. This arcology is the headquarters of Life Innovations, one of the most significant biotech companies of the entire Pact Worlds. Many Brethedan biotech companies have a reputation of being secretive and closed off to off-worlders, but Life Innovations has robust relations with other companies and from people off-world, and has constant traffic coming and going, whether that be researchers from other, college institutions, other companies, other, branches of Life Innovations, or just guests wanting to tour their facility, coming from other parts of the Pact Worlds. Now, because of this, the Koridatsu crime family of the Greater Golden League, which is a pretty big crime syndicate, have established a foothold in the city and are trying to get into as many biotech markets as possible.
This is where the shady shit comes in, because a crime family getting into biotech and, just biotech in general with a crime family, it's not going to end well, I imagine.
Yeah, I shudder to think what their interests will be when they figure out what'll make them money. In Bretheda's southern hemisphere, there are 3 cyclones of epic proportions which have churned for millennia. And I think you pointed this out. It's visible even in the image of Bretheda. That's what you pointed out as kind of the eye of the storm. This area is referred to as Eyes of the Ancients. Mentions of these storms even appear in pre-Gap records, even among societies looking at Bretheda only with rudimentary, Renaissance era telescopes. Satellite imagery shows a calm center cradled between the 3 significant storms, and faint signals suggested that there might have been some kind of structure or settlement down there. Some thought it could be a divine site for one or various gods. Other thought it could be transmissions of some sort of ghost ship lost in the storms long ago and just adrift. However, recently, a foul ritual by cultists drew a large object from the Eyes of the Ancients, referred to as the Demon Moon, and it is small moon size. Visitors to the moon do not return, and it has been blockaded by the Stewards, which we've talked about before, and the Knights of Galarian, who are kind of think of the Avengers type group of heroes, which we'll also talk about them later. The true name of the moon, Ruarde, is spreading to nearby worlds, and wherever the true name is uttered, chaos spreads.
Yeah, Demon Moon seems like it's a good name for that. Doesn't sound like anything happy or angelic is happening there.
No.
Do we know what cult or what those cult is a follower of that summoned it?
No, this was introduced in the most recent lore with the Starfinder 2nd edition launch, and I'm expecting they're going to expand on it a little bit. But yeah, as of right now, everyone's like, what the fuck?
Yeah, reasonable, very reasonable response. When you were first describing it, I'm like, ooh, the gang goes to the lost city of Atlantis to find a sect of people who have just been lost to time.
Yeah.
But they've been found,
Nope.
Whatever the hell they are.
It's not good.
It does not seem good at all.
So, Ruarde is just kind of vibing. I don't know if it's in the orbit of Bretheda or if it's still kind of in the atmosphere, but whatever it's doing, not good.
This will be a fun one to throw into all of our future campaigns where I'll just go around saying the name to everyone that I meet. It's like, aha, chaos will follow me. And we'll see what happens.
Ruarde, woo!
It's like, what is that? Is that a new kind of drink? We got beer
here. So off of Bretheda itself, there are a number of moons of importance. Obviously, there's the big 3, which we talked about earlier, but we're going to save those for a future episode. But one of the smaller moons is one named Varos, and it has a site on it known as Varos Station 4. The Brethedan government has abolished the death penalty, but those convicted of the most heinous crimes are sent to forced labor camps on outlying death moons, one such camp being Camp 4 on the moon Varos. This camp is inhabited by prisoners who are of construct backgrounds, such as androids, anacytes, and sentient robots, who are used to mine the rare gemstones occurring on the moon. Rumors persist that the conditions here are little better than slavery, and activists have been demanding independent investigations into the prison camps on Varos.
Yeah, I like I don't like it. The idea of, I find it funny, where they're like, yeah, we don't have a death sentence. We're just going to send you here, and we're going to work you to death in the mines. But we're not killing you.
We're humane. Here's a gulag.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, obviously interesting stuff that can happen out there. A Vunner moon is going to be one known as Yashu Indiri, and it is tiny and airless, but since the end of the gap, an order of mystics have taken up residence here and have covered the surface of the moon with shrines and structures devoted to forgotten deities, and they also maintain a large library of knowledge on these abandoned figures. So the various mystic monks of this monastery world are themselves interesting to many, but the Starfinder Society is particularly interested in the information held here because some of that knowledge is going to be regarding stuff that happened during the gap.
Is this kind of just a group of crazies who went a little bit, not quite Indiana Jones archaeologists, but they were just very, very into old culture and went for just kind of trying to remember everything there is to remember about old deities? Or is there any reason why, I guess?
Yeah, I think it's just for the preservation of knowledge, just to kind of, and they all have a similar interest, so I think just kind of collecting stuff instead of trying to preserve it where it happened. They're trying to consolidate it basically so that knowledge isn't lost and is still accessible, because a lot of the gods that we're talking about here are ones that are no longer worshipped or may have literally been killed, and that information will be lost because those churches have since fallen and there's no one to maintain those records, so it's kind of like just to keep all that going. As an aside, I would not be surprised, we were talking about the cult that raised the demon moon earlier, I would not be surprised if some sort of information from Yashu Indiri is somehow involved with that.
Yeah, somebody found an old Book of the Dead, basically. It was like, hey, I'll read this out loud. So who knows, maybe they summoned that moon on accident.
Yeah, that's true. There's another tiny moon. It's by the name of Chimari, and it would be insignificant except for the fact it bears a series of stone monoliths that, when viewed from orbit, replicate the 6 stars exactly found in the symbol of Ibra, and that's the deity representing the universe's infinite cosmological mysteries. I'm just going to send you the symbol of Ibra, just so you can kind of see how those monoliths would be laid out. It's basically a constellation, and the plinths would be where these stars are at in the image.
Okay. It's not comparable, at least that I know of, to any constellations that we have, but it is just a series of 6 stars. It's kind of like their Stonehenge, a little bit of flavor, throw in a Stonehenge.
Yeah, so the monoliths here on Chimari serve as one of the oldest temples to Ibra that exist in the Pact Worlds and really in a lot of the surrounding systems. So pilgrim tourists flock to this world en masse, and the priests of the temple have been irritated by the number of starships in the atmosphere because their running lights mess up the astronomical readings of the night sky by the priests. As such, there are very specific approach lanes and landing limitations to approaching Chimari, and this imposed bottleneck has resulted in fierce competition for docking privileges and has sometimes led to active firefights between ships jockeying for position in line.
That's kind of crazy.
It's giving rednecks shooting each other going in the Chick-fil-A line after church.
Yeah, exactly. Also, it's nice to know that light pollution is still an issue far in the future, especially once we have people traveling the stars. You still can't see shit that you need to.
Yeah. Yeah, and it would be, I think, a funny, at least episodic thing to have the party have to go to Chimara and just get caught in this LA level traffic. Completely unexpected.
A 2-mile long line of spaceships waiting for them. It's like, you know what? We're going to cut in line.
All with their weapons spun up. Yeah. All of them start shooting. Nobody cuts on Chimara. Or Chimari, excuse me.
Yeah, no line jumping.
All right. Well, those were just kind of some examples of various places on Bretheda. As with every episode that we've been discussing so far, there's a lot more. And maybe we can get to it on a future one. But now I kind of want to talk about just the society of Bretheda. So we've been talking about the Baratheus a lot, and they're the main cultural influence behind Bretheda, and the ones who sculpted it into even a place with what we would consider society when they started building their arcologies. And they agreed to the creation of Confluence when the Baratheus realized that their traditional kind of anarchist approach to life on Bretheda would not be adequate in dealing with Offworlders or expanding Brethedan influence into the greater Pact Worlds. So the Confluence itself has tremendous power. We talked about before, it represents Bretheda, several of the Brethedan moons, even with the recent departees, Liavara and the Liavaran moons. And it doesn't appear that the administrative Baratheus making Confluence have abused this power, but the mere existence of such expansive influence makes not an insignificant group of people suspicious of how much potential power Confluence could wield.
They essentially control 2 planets, because Liavara is the other gas giant of the Pact World system, and obviously it has some inhabitable moons as well. So this is almost like basically one government is controlling the equivalent of 3 or more of your typical Pact Worlds. So I can see why there would be concern about their, basically their amount and level of power. But at the same time, it's probably more born in jealousy because it's just a well-running government, which those words usually don't go together. But it's an effective government that can run 2 worlds effectively. So I bet there's just a lot of jealousy, and somebody wants to take power over some of the moons or the other planet for themselves, and so they're starting rumors, I would assume.
Yeah, there certainly could be stuff like that going on. And just the general policies of Confluence are considered generally liberal, and freedom and creativity are encouraged. However, we kind of touched on this with the gulags earlier, but the government imposes grave punishments for violent crimes, with little recourse for offenders. I don't think there's an appeals process here. So the arcology cities and various research centers of Bretheda are largely peaceful places with little room for criminal violence.
Having the punishment of being sent to a death camp instead of being sentenced to death, I could see why that would limit people from doing crime, If it's just a slap on the wrist, you'll steal something or whatever. But if the options are not going to a death camp and going to a death camp, I'll lean towards the don't risk it.
And with the moons of Kalamohoy, Marata, and Daikon breaking from Brethedan influence recently, some Baratheus have actually, we kind of talked about this as a concept earlier, but a lot of Baratheus have physically departed Confluence, so that means they've separated their bodies from the whole and joined a growing vocal group, which are doubting the Confluence's power and accusing the leadership of stagnation while the rest of the galaxy and system progresses.
I wonder what their accusations are, because it seems like they're keeping with the times pretty well. They went from growing their arcologies and structures to using modern building techniques, using that modular technique, which is better than what I would think a typical city is on another planet. I wonder what their ammunition is.
Yeah, I think...
aside from the gulags and death camps.
Well, I don't think it's even that. I think it's with those 3... because those 3 moons that left were the most significant moons of Bretheda. I think losing that political power and potential power for Bretheda is maybe not as low-key as Confluence would maybe like it to seem from the outside. I think that may have been a unhappy thing to happen for the Baratheus, who enjoyed being in charge of those 3 worlds. And I think this kind of minority that's being vocal are those that are particularly angry about that, if I had to guess.
They took away their revenue streams, so now they're angry about it.
Very 1776. So as for like the relationship between the Barathu and the Hans, they both groups really culturally value living in harmony with the other kind of floating flora and fauna of the planet. So this mindset has led Bretheda largely to having a good relationship with the other members of the Pact Worlds too. Whereas Eox has obviously had strained histories with other parts of the Pact Worlds. Bretheda really doesn't go that route. They're more happy to just kind of coexist and see how they can keep relationships happy.
I'm just as anti-government as the next person, maybe a smidge more. But, I mean, for what we've discussed, I'm not really hearing any reason to dislike them.
Well, other than the gulags. The gulags are a reason.
Well, yeah, I guess the gulags and death camps, they've got severe punishments, which depends on if the punishment fits the crime.
Yeah.
It's kind of
a philosophical debate. But we've talked about other planets where, on Absalom Station, the government has made the conscious decision to just let gangs run rampant in the Spike. Like that is a policy decision they have made. So
yeah, I'm not saying that the Barathus are doing too bad. Seems like it, aside from death camps, but
Joey's pro death camp. Cancel this man. And we've talked about this before in this episode, but residents of Bretheda have a huge affinity for biotech, just kind of with that Barathu tradition and the presence of all of those biotech companies on the planet. And that kind of leads a lot of the residents to viewing those who have turned to cybernetic augmentations with like scorn or pity, and they basically see it as like the inferior path.
I understand that. Well, no, I don't understand it. We have prosthetics. We don't really have, like, bioprosthetics, I guess, yet.
Yeah.
Technology's going that way. I guess it is definitely like it's how they grew up. It's their kind of home team, in a sense.
Yeah. It's a cultural thing, too. They're like, well, we can do it just fine with growing it. Why would you need to turn to metal to get to that? That's kind of... They see it as like an unholy thing, almost.
I mean, a cybernetic arm does look cool.
Yeah, but wouldn't you rather have a big-ass tentacle that you could just whip people with?
No.
Probably not. But to a resident of Bretheda, the answer would be yes.
Well, they already have tentacles. They don't want arms.
Well, but like other people who live there will also kind of fall into the same cultural... Like if you're a third-generation immigrant to Bretheda and you're a human... You probably are at least interested by biotech augmentations.
It's also the mindset of they have the best, basically, biotech in the entire Pact World system. So, of course, they're going to look down on other stuff because, like, oh, well, why would you ever use something other than biotech? It's like, because I live on Absalom Station, and it's real freaking sketchy to get biotech prosthetics around here,
Yeah. Yeah. So that's kind of the mindset where it's just such a cultural thing to Bretheda. So now we've kind of reached the part of the episode where, I come up with kind of 3 different overarching ideas for campaigns, and we kind of talk through them and what we'd like to potentially see from running those campaigns or as a player. So if you're ready to do that, we'll get into that now.
Yeah, let's dive in.
All right, so the first one, which is just something we were harping on about, the biotech industry is an integral part of Brethedan society. This could lead characters to working for one of the companies or adjacent to it, and that would expose players to the experiments that form the industry. Basically, it's kind of like what we talked about with those all the way back in episode 0 when we talked about the different types of adventures, kind of like those high-tech adventures where you're just getting like, we talked about Bretheda is like the place for cutting-edge biotech research. This is where you could really get some wacky shit and present it to the players.
Yeah, and having access to cool upgrades that you could get for doing parts of the campaign, doing a mission or service for one of these biotech companies, as well as, we talked about that biotech research arcology and how the Koridatsu family of the Golden League is trying to establish a foothold in that academic research area. Cool stuff could go on there, working for or against the Golden League. Maybe you're contracted by a professor whose research was stolen by that family. You have to find a way to get it back, whether that's, breaking in, stealing it, going in guns blazing, or infiltration. Lots of cool ideas there. When it comes to the biotech, you're getting into the kind of hard science that Starfinder can really shine with, and you can kind of go crazy on these adventures of making, maybe you're fighting monsters that have been made through too many biotech advancements or augmentations, and now the Golden League family has their hands on something that they want to unleash or use for themselves.
One of those dinosaurs from Akaton that now has only tentacles.
It's just a kraken. You get to fight the kraken.
Oh, no. No. Yeah, no, I mean, obviously, biotech is all about augmentation, so not to be corny with it, but you could really augment your campaign by adding a bunch of that into it.
10 out of 10.
You were proud of that one. I saw.
I am proud of it.
So, we kind of touched on this one a bit too earlier, but the Demon Moon, Ruarde, it's going to have to be dealt with, and probably exorcised before it can have a pronounced negative effect on Bretheda. And extraplanar demonic threats would likely be a huge central part to this. We haven't talked too much about this yet, so I just wanted to hammer this idea home. Just like in Pathfinder, Dungeons & Dragons, a lot of other similar system, there are different planes of existence. So the mortal plane is where we find ourselves right now. We've also talked about the drift. The drift is basically a plane that's specifically created by the god Triune, presumably to help with that drift travel. There's also traditional planes like heaven, the hells, various demon planes, various elemental planes, and all of those can manifest in the real space. An example of this from other culture would be how creatures of the warp, demons of the warp, are able to manifest themselves in 40K. So there's some sort of demonic... It's a demon moon. They're calling it a demon moon, so I'm going to go out on a limb and say it's probably demons associated with it. And my guess is the surface is just crawling with these fuckers and some sort of cult or other things who are working for some greater nefarious purpose. So having the party be sci-fi demon hunters, glorious theming there.
When we were discussing that, I mean, that's the one that stood out to me as my kind of favorite tidbit of the episode so far. This demon moon that was previously unknown, and you're just getting random signals kind of emanating from that area, a lot of mysteriousness around it, and then it turns out to be what people are calling a demon moon. Mm-hmm. There's your adventurer party comes to this planetary system. There's no way they don't want to go there to check it out, Yeah. You could have an entire...
Oh, no one's come back yet? Count me in. Let's go there.
Yeah, you could have an entire kind of saga of reaching it. It's in a difficult to reach area, even though it's kind of been raised. We don't think it's in the atmosphere, so it's not easily accessible. But, getting there could be difficult. You could do some stuff with piloting, flying through those storms to get there, and then landing there. Who knows what you're going to find? You could, until Paizo kind of expands on it, you could have it just an entire rock populated with demons that they show up, and then they have to figure out a way to fix a crashed ship and escape it, or figure out why no one's ever come back.
Or you just have Doom.
Yeah.
The four of you just get to be Doom guy.
Everybody gets a shotgun.
And a chainsword. Rip and tear.
Both of which are available as equipment.
This is true. We'll have an episode on that later. Kind of the last idea I had, I was trying to spread stuff around, so we have an idea for Bretheda itself, we have an idea for the Demon Moon. Now this is just for the kind of those greater moons around Bretheda. The prison camp moons really have an interesting potential for either wrongful or just imprisonment, and then having a story evolve from there. So that could be the players themselves are prisoners, and you could have stories take the route of prison revolutions, or maybe they're on one of those planets where mining is essential and they find something deep in the core of a planet and they kind of have to navigate that discovery as a prisoner, or maybe they're just trying to do an escape.
If any of you guys have read the book or watched the movie or the many different types of media of The Great Escape, it would be kind of funny if you just set up an entire campaign and followed that along exactly, escaping from one of these death camps, having to crawl under the barracks and dig through the fence, and they hijack a motorcycle or whatever, space motorcycle.
Run for the spaceport.
Yeah. And then you're
hover bike to the spaceport.
Being chased by the guards. Could be really cool, just a kind of fun, whimsical, great escape adventure. But yeah, as you said, your party, a good way to start it is your party meets at that camp. Mm-hmm. That's kind of like your episode or your session 1. You're all in this prison camp.
You're all bunkmates.
Bunkmates, new arrivals in the same transport bus, something like that. Could be a good place to start and have 4 characters of different backgrounds kind of meet up and then do either an escape. Finding a cool relic on the moon or whichever area it is would also be cool. Maybe it gives you special powers. You see a future of the camp burning and you have to find a way to get out before that happens. A lot of different stuff you can do centering around one of these prison camps that they have. I know that I would love to see something like that. I think a great escape adventure, the party sneaking around guards, picking locks to get out, that kind of stuff is always fun. You know, everybody likes to get in trouble, but the real fun is how you get yourself out of trouble.
Yeah, 100%. And something I always like to throw in for game masters, something that players like to have is kind of the concept of like a sandbox type game, where it's really hard for the game master to plan out, like, ooh, shit, what are they going to do next? So somewhere where you have a very clear set of boundaries, for example, a prison camp, where it's like, okay, we have, like, sites of interest here, but it's all a scale that someone is able to manage. You don't have to plan for every eventuality, because if they try to climb the fence, you just shoot them. So that they'll have to find a very specific way to get out. But other than that, you can set up various points of interest, various events, various encounters in advance, and then they can kind of just run into those as they sandbox their way through the story, as opposed to you having to be like, okay, we're going to do a sandbox on Triaxis, go wherever you want. That's impossible to do because the confines are too big. So with this, you could do a bunch of really good prep and then just kind of unleash the party on it and see what they're able to do.
I also, as a player, I do enjoy having kind of a little bit more of those boundaries, knowing my options kind of on the next place to go. So in a camp, you would have barracks, infirmary, commissary, kitchen, guardhouse, warden's office, that kind of stuff. You can say, leave different clues, different NPCs in each area. You can set up those encounters, and then when they first visit the kitchen or, wherever, exercise yard, whatever, it's like, okay, a fight breaks out and you get roped into it because someone just starts punching one of your party.
Yeah.
Guards come and take all of you to solitary and kind of go from there.
Spray you with the fire hose. Puts the lotion on the skin.
Yeah. Everybody gets bear mace. You get some bear mace, and you get some bear mace.
Yeah, no, I mean, all of those I think would be very fun ideas. As per usual, we're such geniuses for coming up with things we'd like to play.
Yeah, if only we could play more than once a month.
God.
Optimistically.
What I would love. What I would give. But yeah, that kind of draws us to the end. I mentioned this earlier, but lots more Brethedan information out there, and we have the added point of lots of good stuff with Kalamohoi, Murata, and Daikon, and we will get to those moons later, just because they had enough info that I thought they deserved their own episode. But until then, just a reminder that you can go over to Instagram and follow us at drifthappens_ASP. You can see good updates about the podcast or be the first one to know when an episode is dropping, but only if you follow us there. So make sure you hop on over to take a look. And do you have anything else for our beloved listeners, Joey?
Not much else from me. I just want to thank you guys once again for sticking along with us on this journey that we're taking. If you made it this far and you're not annoyed by us yet, I really appreciate it, and we look forward to getting another episode out to you guys very soon.
We also suggest seeking psychiatric services. But until then, we will see you next week.
Yep, and have a wonderful day, everyone.